Hi, my name's Araya Bode, and I will be going over my advocacy plan for transforming math assessments to project-based learning projects. So, why this matters to me is because I believe traditional math assessments are a little outdated. They're more focused on memorization versus project-based learning assessments are focused on deeper understanding, creativity, and real-world application and skills that students will use in this 21st century. And then, as an educator, I have seen so many students just struggle with test anxiety and actually be really good at the topic, but then just kind of choke on the test. I had one student in particular that comes to mind, and in a group setting, in a project setting, he was a leader. He came with many intuitive insights to his group and knew the topic, but then on his test just would underperform for what I knew he could do. And I just don't think that's a fair assessment of what students know. I think it's very outdated and it's more just like, what can you memorize before the test? And some students are better at other students in that. So traditionally, math assessments emphasize rote learning, which is just kind of memorizing the same thing or doing the same thing over and over again, while project-based learning is more 21st century skills, teaching students to use what they're learning and apply it in a creative sense. So traditional math assessments kind of stay in that remembering, understanding, maybe applying level if you're writing your test creatively, where project-based assessments would be in the more evaluating and creating level, which is where we ultimately should be aiming to get our students to learn in that level versus just remembering and understanding level. So there's a lot of reasons why this matters, but it all comes down to it is ethically important to start switching to project-based learning. Standardized tests favor certain learning styles and disadvantage diverse learners, where project-based learning helps students to um, show off their skills and what they're good at. Real world relevance is a great positive of project based assessments. They will be mirroring STEM careers when they do projects in class versus just um, doing the work calculators can do in those career fields. And then studies show PBAs do improve retention, critical thinking, and engagement. I read about a teacher called Mr. Leal who transformed his classroom, his AP classes, into more project-based learning versus just traditional classroom. And one of his students said in other classes, it was a lecture, reading, test, but in AP Environmental Science, we worked on projects with other students, discussed our ideas, considered different perspectives, and I learned just so much more this way. So that was from an actual student, and I think students enjoy project-based learning versus just trying to cram everything before the test. And also, evidence supports the idea that project-based learning does help students learn more. In the diagram in front of us, it shows that in traditional classes, 37% of AP students pass their tests, where in the project-based learning classes, 45% students pass their tests. So that's only almost a 10% increase, which over time I think would grow even more. So that's another good reason to use project-based learning assessments in your classroom. And then my primary advocacy goal is to shift from test-based assessments to project-based assessments in the high school math class, and then eventually expand this into other classrooms as well. But you got to start where you're at first, and I'm a math teacher. And then my long-term goal is that within the next 5 years, this would be adapted by all the math classes in my high school that I work at. Eventually, when I work. So this is a honestly a very achievable goal within 5 years if each teacher just focuses on changing 2 units a year to have a project-based assessment versus a typical assessment, or just one assessment a semester. However you look at it, just starting small and just changing it one by one, project-based assessments can definitely be a little harder to plan. So if we start off small and then grow to doing all of our assessments on project-based ways, that's a really achievable way to look at it versus just trying to tell teachers to change everything at once. So, how we can achieve these goals is to increase awareness, educate educators and administrators on the project based assessments benefits, teach them how to give these project based assessments, maybe start small just with like a couple classes giving them these assessments and recording the data so we can get that back to the other teachers to show them that it is truly transferring, and then also just advocate for this change at your district level within your own PLCs and so on. So there are supporters that have high influence and then skeptics with high influence. So our supporters with high influence are going to be our progressive educators that are near us in our math department, our buddies that want to do the same thing as us. So we can get two heads together and focus on one goal to try to transform our classrooms. Our curriculum directors are always, I think, willing to do more project-based learning versus traditional testing. And then I think most STEM organizers are high influence on this topic. Our STEM fields are transforming, and STEM careers are more based in intuitive, sorry, innovation and stuff like that. So I don't think STEM organizations want us to just be giving our students tests. And then the people with high influence that are a little more skeptical are going to be our traditionalist teachers. Our teachers who are a little bit older, we got to get them on board with us. We got to help them to understand the positives of project-based learning and to try to get them on our side. And then also the policymakers that are reluctant to change, they're going to be worried about state testing and all those little key pieces. But if our students can do projects and use their learning in such a creative way, I think when it comes down to the state testing, that won't really be a problem. And then my main aim is in 5 years, high school mathematics classrooms in my school will implement project based assessments as a primary method of evaluating students' learning to emphasize critical thinking, real world application, and student engagement. The primary drivers of this plan are going to be the other teachers in my math department, my curriculum designers, including myself and other teachers, and then also my school administration, just trying to get everybody on board. We're definitely going to have to involve student feedback, make sure they're liking it, trying to take critique of what we can change and what we could keep the same. Um, Definitely fight for the whole district to have project-based learning so that they can start learning this way of learning from a younger age so that by the time they're to their high school level, it's already something they're kind of used to. And then also just focusing on training for our teachers, um, being able to create project-based assessments, rubrics, understanding how to grade them. It's all kind of a complicated process, but with more training on how to do that, it becomes less complicated. And then, yeah, also just trying to engage our parents of students so that they know what we're doing in the classroom and get their opinion on it too and how their students are reacting to it. So, some strategies and action steps is in the first 2 years, we can conduct a lot of professional development for teachers and implement project based assessments in select classrooms. In 3 to 4 years, we can gather assessment data. How are the students responding to these project based assessments? Are they scoring higher on their assessments? And then go from that data and refine our methods, talk to students, what did they like about the projects, what could have been better. And then we can also learn to expand project-based assessments across different departments, maybe um, math and science are very related, so we can start transferring into science and eventually reading and writing and history. And then long term, just advocate for state level policy changes, get our state to stop focusing on state testing. I feel like that's such a huge reason teachers are so reluctant to change. And then also just get more funding to do project based assessments because sometimes these cost a little bit of money. And then, some ethical considerations to think about while we're learning project based assessments is fair grading. We have to learn how to create rubrics, how to teach our students how to read a rubric, and check that their project is going based on that rubric. I remember in my high school years, my teachers would have rubrics and they would say, if you do all this, you'll get a 3 or a B. If you have all these things, you'll get an A. So I think it's important that we have those clear, very concise rubrics so that all students know exactly what is expected of them. Um, inclusive inclusiveness is really important in this project-based assessments. I think it's actually very easy to be inclusive for different types of learners and students. I think in projects, students get to show off their best skills, and if we use different kind of projects, this can give students different opportunities to show off what they like to do, for instance, hands-on projects, computer projects, things like that. And then also teacher support. Make sure we're training our teachers how to make these projects, how to think of these, how to work together. Um, and also help them to understand that it doesn't have to be all at once. Like I said, just changing two assessments a year or assessment a semester can just make a big difference, especially in a 5-year plan. And then, altogether, I just want to emphasize that PBAs enhance students' learning, reduce anxiety, and just really align with real world applications and the careers we have today. Um, so the way that this plan is going to work is that teachers start small, incorporate one PBA per semester, and then we also need to like back one another up, help other teachers to understand the best way to start PBAs in their classroom, share ideas, talk to students. How are you feeling about it? What do you want to show off? Let students kind of lead the project, but also give them the tools they need. Asking parents to help advocate on the district level, and also getting their response of how their students like it versus they don't like it. And then overall, just transforming assessments. Um, yeah, so I think it's important to remember that educators should measure understanding, not just memorization. And that's a huge reason I'm advocating for changing to project based assessments. So please take action and just start by changing one of your lessons per semester and then maybe encouraging other teachers around you. The kids deserve to enjoy what they're learning and to practice skills that they are going to use in the workforce one day. And I think. Um, Teachers should be inspired to start teaching students what they're going to be doing in the workforce, which is not arithmetic. That's what the calculators do. We want our students to have creativity and to be able to work with other people and be able to use the computer programs and to be able to create things, and to bring something to the table when they go into their workforces. So, um, yeah, it's our obligation to start switching our classrooms to student-led, project-based classrooms. So I hope you guys all enjoyed my presentation, and I hope you all switch to project-based learning.